Okay, welcome everyone to another edition of our DGI Monday Challenge. Today's guest is the invitee of Nilima Bhatt, who was with us 3 weeks ago, talking about the benefits of balancing out masculine and feminine values in our leadership skills, what she called Shakti leadership. So today we will continue drilling down the path of leadership that Nilima opened up, and we'll investigate the role of diversity. Not just gender, but everything, age, race, cultural diversity, etc. And for that, we have a guest who was named by Diversity Global's magazine amongst the top 10 influential women in global diversity. She also won the International Alliance of Women Award and is the founder and director of the Women's International Networking Conference. Kristin Engvig, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So let's begin talking a little bit about you. Tell us, what's your purpose in life, Kristin?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I mean, I do have lots of different purposes, I think. But I think one of those that are been quite important for me has been that of trying to bring balance of the feminine and give that value. But it's not only, also another one is that of uplifting people, inspiring the world so that we can all do our very best. So that has been a big part of my purpose, the feminine, but uplifting people and making sure we create this world where we all can be together.
Okay, so I guess this WIN conference is part of that. And I presume that actually going ahead with your purpose in life in a situation like this is not easy. It's becoming harder than ever. And this is actually the question that Nilima left for you. So maybe we can actually go down to that question.
Yeah.
How is that impacting your business, and how are you planning to innovate in your conference to move forward despite the current situation?
Yeah. So let's say for me, it's been important to create balance in the world. And I started to work particularly with women, to empower women or to open up possibilities to have a balanced way, both at work, in society, and in our own very lives. And I thought the quickest way to do that was a conference, because when we come together to listen to stories about how to run our companies, but also how to become free to do what we want, to be more creative, to know how to present ourselves and to build network and support each other, doing that together, or sort of the fastest way to accelerate this change and transformation. Now, when we can't really come together anymore, what do we do? So so this is the interesting thing. And I think I'm doing just like you, we are doing online events. And on the one hand, what we are finding, we are exploring now with some of these seminars online. And some of it's been exciting, because I see that people from different time zones can come in. There were women from Asia that called me after a webinar I did last week that said, normally I can't fly into your events in Europe, but no, I joined something. So then I realized, okay, we can do something here. And then we are trying to experiment how we can do it interactive also on the web, how to make workshop rooms, how to do these things. So that I think is quite exciting. And meeting live is very important. And now I'm working on a possibility of doing also the large event that we do, a big annual event every year with hundreds of people. And I thought, what can we do now to have it online, but also where some people can meet in satellite groups, where they're actually meeting physically for lunch, let's say, or for some of the meetings of groups of 5 or groups of as many as we can be when we legally, let's say, or health-wise. So maybe that's a way. So I think if you take the topic of showcasing or modeling, and like in a conference, is a great chance to show new stereotypes of authentic leaders, authentic women, or also men that are very balanced and are doing great things in the world. On a conference, it's a great way to show these new role models. So this we can also do on the web, but helping each other physically it is really, really very important. But I also see this chance now. This is the way we're doing it, so we can innovate in that sense, and maybe it can even become bigger because people can.
That's the thing. It's there's always an opportunity hiding behind every crisis, right? That's what we try to. That's the mindset that we try to promote in this webinar series. How you can actually use crisis to trigger your innovation capabilities. In fact, navigating through a crisis, it's an opportunity or it's the opposite depending on your mindset. So it depends on how capable are you of thinking out of the box and putting yourself in creative mode. So I think with this, we're going to go down the main topic of today's webinar. What does it take to think out of the box? How do we trigger our divergent mode of thinking?
Yeah, it's very interesting because so very often when we think about innovation and new things, it's so easy that or new thoughts actually come from what we know from before. So to come up with something really, really new, I think it really it means that in some ways we need to let go of the past and give some empty space in our minds. That's why I think all the presencing or meditation practice is very important, so that we can in some ways be open to receive something new. So that's one thing to do for ourselves. And then putting yourself together with people that are different from you is very important. And that's why the role of diversity is so important. Diversity, both putting ourselves together, women and men, but young and old, people from different culture, different background, because that stimulates or creativity and dialogue and a different way of looking at things. Sometimes it can be also very difficult, when you are with somebody radically different from you. And sometimes it can create conflict if you're not careful, but at the same time, it's a way to also start thinking differently. And we need that.
So you think that diversity is definitely one of the ingredients of this cocktail that allow us to think more creatively, to think out of the box, which is quite so much needed in these current times. So one thing is thinking, I need diversity to trigger that. Another thing, and this is what I wanted to ask you next, do you think the need for diversity manifests itself in times of crisis? How do you, where do you see now, for instance, that there is lack of diversity, and if there would be more diversity, things would be better? Can you see that? Could you give us some examples?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I saw, just like I mentioned in the beginning, I had the webinar last week, and because it was online, I had people from Asia calling in. Okay, I did it in the afternoon and they called in the evening. When it was live, it would cost them a flight and they couldn't come. So we had a chance now in this time to be together online, and maybe we wouldn't have created that situation a year ago. So that was a way where we could quickly get a diversity of thoughts just because of different nationalities. No, and then there is a challenge also in terms of crisis that I see with some organizations where budgets to diversity and inclusions is not the highest priority right now because of there are other priorities at the moment that are more vital. So that is understandable, and at the same time, if you have a long-term perspective, those budgets you must make sure are not cut in this moment. So this balance, and also humanly, it's very easy when we are in crisis to search out for some sort of comfort, and that I think is also important for creativity, that we have some sort of a safe zone, a secure base, so that around us you have people that you can trust and that so that's also an important ingredient in our life, so we can stay steady and also take in difference. So it's that balance all the time.
Mm-hmm. So I remember in our discussion with Nilima 3 weeks ago, we were talking about the role of women in business and how in the past many women tended to behave more macho than the toughest match around to climb the ladder of power and leadership, which is quite sad, obviously. But the thing that she was pointing out is that more recently, we're seeing more and more a shift towards authenticity. You also mentioned authenticity before. So could you tell us a bit more about this shift?
Yes, I can. And I remember, 2 decades ago when I started to work with women, I'd come from Norway, and if you read the studies that's done on cultural diversity, there is a Dutch guy, Mr. Hofstede, who's done a major study in many different countries, and he's also looked at dimensions such as feminine and masculine qualities in cultures, and he also looked at power distance, and he looks at different dimensions. But it is also so that in certain countries, both women and men are more feminine than women and men in more masculine countries. So when you look at women, masculine, feminine instead of male and woman, you see there is a difference there too. And many of the Scandinavian countries are actually quite feminine. Also, in both women and men are more feminine, not in terms of nail polish and high heels, but in terms of giving value to caring and sharing in society, collaboration, and so on. So when I started to travel to certain other countries that didn't give that much value to that, I was quite shocked, and particularly with the women that I saw had taken on. And I mean, I know it was very tough, so I don't think they had much choice. And I am very also compassionate for the choice because they didn't have much choice. But today, I think there is, because of the challenges around us, both from the environmental changes to many other things, there is a call from the world really, and from organizations, for more empathy, for more caring, and for more sharing, and for more collaboration. So many of these qualities are now become more obvious for everybody, that unless we embody those qualities and exercise those qualities, it won't go so well for all of us. So I think that is something that's now part of our time. And of course, it's a result also of people who have worked for it and given it space and been activists for it. I do think that's important to say. And,
sorry.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about a bit of authenticity. And I think the authentic part is that, of course, we are all so many different variations of humans, and some men are more masculine and some are more feminine, and the women too. So in this in our conscious journeys, it's also about listening inside and then exploring who are we really, and also accepting the different kinds. So I'm not saying that all women must become more feminine, because maybe some are a bit more, on the masculine type, and if that's who they really are, and then I think there is also something we see more in these times of crisis. It's also a very situational leadership, that in certain moments we need to, I call it, since I'm from Norway, you need to be more the Viking warrior and be, that type. And other times the role is to be gracious, right? So it is, we have many sides. And I think as we grow as humans on our journeys, we manage to integrate and manage both, and that's what's so exciting when we are on authentic people.
Yeah, definitely. I'm quite sure that if we were all much more authentic, not just women, which was my original question, why women why do they need to disguise when they, in order to access power? I think if everybody was much more authentic, the world would probably be a much better place for everyone. So we've been talking about diversity, and obviously diversity is also tightly coupled to inclusion. So I'd like to explore a little bit this territory. How would you define an inclusive business?
So the inclusive business or inclusive Yeah, let's start with the inclusive company. The inclusive company is one that includes, different types of employees, from younger, older, different backgrounds, nationalities, colors, ethnicities, religion, and basically go beyond that and value you for who you are. Okay, and that's part of the leadership, and it's not always easy. So it's someone who is also on a learning journey in a way, to can catch herself or catch himself in their own behavior. And when we talk about inclusive business, that means also that this type of inclusive thinking and inclusive behavior is part of your value chain, or how you're treating people outside as well. What type of customers do you have, and how are you treating those customers? And also the entire environment being so if you see this as, first you are inclusive of who you are as an authentic person, the people around you, and then the entire environment around you, including nature. And yeah, I was thinking, and also to make it work, I've been experimenting a bit on that, and I had a phase where I was like, oh, inclusive of everything, everything's possible. And I realized, no. You also request some boundaries of where you need to say no when there are, because you have to also, there is an integrity point as well of things that you need to take care of. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like it would be highly beneficial that all businesses were much more inclusive than they currently are. Now, the big question obviously is, how do we go about creating more inclusive business? How do we do that? What can we do to promote inclusivity in business? Can you give us some ideas or examples of how to do that?
Yeah, so I think just starting with ourselves as leaders and organizational members is you had a one way we can work on strategies. So you can say goals. I want to have X number of different nationalities working for my organization. I want to have so and so many women and men working for my organization. So companies set up quotas, they do all sort of things like that. But we also see that no matter policies, no matter strategies, it doesn't always work. Although sometimes some are successful. So we need that, strategy, policies, and various programs to teach people how to be that. And ultimately, we need to look at ourselves. I see that is very important, because maybe when you work with very different people from you, you need to give it in the beginning a bit more time. You need to ask questions because maybe it wasn't obvious immediately. So we need to look at how generous are you to take your time to something that's different, and also reflect on it, because certain certain things you can say, oh, this is cultural, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just not right. So that's something. But I worked with many organizations that are by design creating policies and to make this work. And I think naming things also, to make sure that just take IKEA or something, they have furniture names, processes are named, so that you don't misunderstand that easily, also because of your cultural background or something. So I think that's something all organizations can do, be very good at naming processes, naming things, and so that you have a common glue, a common understanding of what we mean by different things. So that's important.
In a way, when I listen to you, there's some flavor. When you talk about policies, it very much sounds also about this thing called positive discrimination. Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to play devil's advocate now. Yeah. I would say many people could probably say or think that the best candidates should always be selected for a job position based solely on their aptitudes, irrespective of sex, age, etc. So they are completely against positive discrimination because they think that talent should be first. So what would you say about that? Do you really think positive discrimination is necessary?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, I also agree. We need to get the best candidate. No, we know that unfortunately, we have seen in many countries that can take so extremely many years. And so I have come to the conclusion that sometimes using quotas, for instance, in politics or in organizational life for a limited period of time is a measure, is a tool that can be used to accelerate the process. So if you look at the gender, if you would say, I would like to have more gender balance, and if the processes of selecting people are still made based on an old way of doing things, where maybe women don't identify themselves in those processes, or there is a job advert and they say, the women now, no, that's not for me, because the way it's written, there are things you really need to look at to make that coherent, so that it's appealing also for these different groups. But I do think positive discrimination, or let's say call it quotas or measures you do, can work for a limited period of time. If it's for too long, then it feels unfair, I think. But for a short time, it's not necessarily even unfair, because it just gives somebody a chance at least to be selected and to try it out. And we get used to seeing, a man in a role where there were only women, or a woman in a role where there were only men, or somebody young or somebody older.
I guess I think I totally agree with you. I'm thinking maybe it also has some. I think it also comes down to our definition of best. When we say that this is the best candidate, okay, what does best mean really, right? So don't you think there's also some subjective ideas when we say this is the best candidate, and we use that, our own definition of best, to discriminate in the opposite way, don't you think?
Oh, so much subjective. So I think in the end, what one needs to look at is very much values, and see if we align to those values. So or align purpose, these type of things, not only the way it's been done before. That's so that we try to unite, because also, yes, we need differences, but also to be successful, we need to go the same direction. And so we need to have with us in our organizations people that are united of a different, similar dream, or similar vision. So we need to go the same direction. That's very important.
So let me completely switch gears here now. I'd like to talk about a totally different topic. Your business has to do with networking, but I've heard you talk about networking with purpose. Can you tell us a bit more about that concept? Because we're all in the world of business, we're all used to almost speed networking. You go to an event, you meet somebody, you try to identify quickly whether that person can be helpful to your goals or not, and if not, you just find an excuse to say goodbye and meet somebody else. And it's like, what kind of networking is that? So what's your view on this topic?
That's really great. I mean, when I started to put different people together in these big gatherings, and I really looked at how we can create a different world and a different workplace and a different individuals that are, can bring us forward into a world that works for all. And then I called it Women International Networking. And I did think at the time networking as collaboration of doing things together, or bringing people from different countries together. And one day someone told me, Kristin, can you talk more about networking? And I thought, I don't know. Networking, I suddenly started to feel like aggressive to me, like strategic, people, I only want to talk to this person because I want something. And that's not the way we ever did stuff. And this person said, but you have created all these thousands of people have come. And then I thought, because the way we connect, and that's how I saw that the way we connect is a way, it's connecting to flourish with purpose and with passion. So I realized that networking as a word had almost been appropriated by something like strategic at the cocktail bar, and it doesn't need to be like that, because we see it these days, we are all connected. This is a whole web of connections we are all part of. So how do we consciously connect in a more mindful, in a purposeful way? And I started to think, to do that is, if each and every one of us are really connected to our hearts or mind or excitement in our belly, so it's where we're wholly present, and in our conversations with each other, which we can call networking, is also about finding what's our common purpose, what do we have in common, from where we can work together. So that's one part of purpose, but it's also in a conversation with another, to see, when is that other person lighting up, when is that other person feeling excited about something, because that helps them also go in the direction of their purpose. And sometimes when you listen to another, you become clear of your own purpose. So that is sort of the networking of purpose. And then the other part of this is what we call the networking with passion or joy. And that is exactly this of, I mentioned it also, to look at what makes you excited. So, and what makes another excited, another lit up, and another feel enthusiastic. Because I think in this time also of crisis, what really brings us forward is when we are passionate about something, when we are really enthusiastic about something. Because to climb or even move mountains with extraordinary inspiration, it can be done. So then, instead of networking just to get something or to take something of a thing, we can also do that in an exchange of enthusiasm and inspiration. And sometimes we need things too. Someone's looking for a job, someone is looking to hire somebody, someone's looking for a house, and someone's looking to give a house. So it's this blend of strategic networking, where it's like giving and taking, to a more also higher conscious networking of exchange of energies and purpose.
Okay. I'd love to keep asking you questions, but we have some from the audience, and before we run out of time, let's switch to them. Berta, can you share the questions from the audience real quick with us?
Sure. We have a couple of questions now. So we have Daniela Liz. She asks, what type of culture can an inclusive company design?
What kind of, an inclusive company can design an inclusive culture, let's say. So you have to see what culture. So an inclusive company, I think I hope I understand correctly, that the culture needs to be inclusive, one which, or you can, by inclusive culture or inclusive company, can create a culture where it's easy to speak up. Often, if it's not inclusive, people would feel scared to speak up. Maybe they're scared they're not enough. And that's why you can lose brilliant ideas. So an inclusive company can create more creative cultures. It can create also cultures where people feel more valued. And when they feel more valued, I'm sure, I know they will also be more loyal and do better for you. But particularly this part of a culture of openness, a culture where you feel, oh, I mean something to others here, and I'm appreciated, and I'm not scared of talking up, even if my idea is totally crazy. So.
Okay, second question.
Yeah, so Anne Riley, she asks, there are some interesting platforms now, like Applied, that are using behavioral science to remove bias and improve predictive validity in hiring.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with these hiring platforms, and do you think they work well?
Yeah, I'm familiar with some of them, and I think, it is a very important progress that we have this now, so we can start looking at the bias, and everybody has a bias. And it certainly helped a little bit. So I think it's a good step forward. And I do also see that catching your own biases, as I say, is a lifelong commitment, because every moment we may have another conscious or unconscious, typically bias, So hopefully it's unconscious. Yeah. So, but it does help. I don't know all of the second one that well, but I know some of them. So I think it's good. These are innovative products that are coming up these days.
Okay, it's basically, I guess the idea, I don't know them, but I guess it's the idea is try to eliminate our bias and go and have more objective tools that are unbiased, right?
Yes.
And I think artificial intelligence will also take us there. I think that artificial intelligence will be a great tool for matchmaking objectively, irrespective of gender, age, nationality, or whatever. So.
Yes, and we have to also be careful though, because now I see that the AI can only be as good as our own consciousness. So if we as humans are biased, and this is why I've been an advocate for more gender balance in programming, so that we have.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
You see what I mean? So if 90% of the programs are male, for instance, or young men, or only one type of people, so this is very interesting. And I sometimes see algorithms on social media. They like conflicts of articles. What makes something be liked more? What is spending more time? So I think,
definitely. I mean, artificial intelligence doesn't have a consciousness of its own. So it's an externalization of somebody else's consciousness. If that somebody else is biased, artificial intelligence will be as well. Okay, we're definitely coming to the end of our session. So before we go, I'd like to ask you the final two questions, which are, as usual, first of all, your vision on conscious capitalism. Where do you think businesses should go moving forward? What's your vision of conscious capitalism?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that businesses must go in the direction of more awareness of environment and people and the organization's place in society. So this more integral thinking is hugely important, and that's part of conscious capitalism. So I think this is just going to grow. It's just going to be more and more important. And I think we're still not there in finding the exact right models yet, and probably there will be many different models as well. But for sure, we see from the climate to all sorts of things happening to us that the old way of doing business is not the way forward. So my vision is to continue to advocate for a more inclusive and more sustainable and more joyful way of doing business.
Enjoying life rather than living for working. Okay, sounds like a good idea. And with that, we'll go to our final question, which is one of the main reasons for having this webinar series, which is creating a random thought of thought leaders that give us their vision and what's going on and how we can take advantage of this opportunity. What are the lessons to be learned? So who would you like for us to invite as our next thought leader in this webinar series?
Oh yeah, I was thinking about another fellow Scandinavian. She's from Denmark, Helen Eriksson. So she's a business economist and a psychologist actually. And she has written numerous books, and the one is like Growing While Giving, and the one I like so much, which is called Change Does Not Ask for Permission. So I thought Helen Eriksson will be good on that, because we are just living this. Change did not ask us for permission. That's right?
quite an inspiring title nowadays. Yes. Okay. Is there any particular question you would like to ask her, or?
To maybe. Ask her how to deal with, how to trust that change is a part of the evolutionary process of it's actually only going forward.
Good, great question. So we'll make sure we ask her that. So I guess that brings us to the end of this great interview. Is there anything else you would like to say as a wrap up?
Yeah, I was thinking there is something where I have often said when it comes to inclusion too. If we don't consciously include, we might very well exclude. So that I think is very important.
That summarizes very well our discussion today. Okay, Kristin, well, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure interviewing you. And thank you to our live audience. As usual, we will post this video on YouTube tomorrow. And by the way, the next session will be with, next Monday, will be with Timothy Henry, who's the author of the Conscious Capitalism Field Guide, and he's also a business coach. We'll be talking with him about the role of culture in times of crisis. So I hope we see you all next Monday. Thank you very much. And thank you again, Kristin. See you soon.
Thank you. Great.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.